As you probably already know, that Microsoft Excel can do two things. It's a database where you can store and sort your client information, and also it acts as a calculator with attitude. You can do a lot of calculations in Excel. To start, we'll double click and open up Microsoft Excel. First, up at the top, you've got your title bar. By default, you're going to have Book 1 until you actually save it, so always be sure to save your work and give it a name. You have your menus. When you click on them, they'll expand, and if they don't expand all the way, and also you only have one toolbar here, it looks like one toolbar, right click anywhere up at the top, and then down at the bottom, left click on Customize. Go to the Options tab, and I check these. Show Standard and Formatting Toolbars on 2 rows. So up at the top I have my Standard, then below that I have my Formatting, so they're not sharing one row. This way I can see both of them. And then always show full menus, because if you uncheck that, that means there's, well, going to be a short delay when you click on it before it fully expands the menu. This way I can see everything. For right now, we're not going to work with the task pane that's currently open over on the right hand side. We'll close out of that. Now by default, when you open up Microsoft Excel, you'll have 3 sheets down at the bottom called Spreadsheets 1, 2, and 3. How many rows and how many columns you have? Well, the quickest way to find out, as you can see, we have several columns. On the keyboard, find the End key, E-N-D, hit it once, and then hit the right arrow key once. And it takes me all the way over to column IV. I guess it's about 256, or, well, no, it's a lot of columns. To get to the bottom, it's the same thing. Hit the End key on the keyboard, and this time hit the down arrow on row 65,536. So in other words, you've got a lot of columns and rows or cells on each spreadsheet. Hold down the Control key and hit Home, and it takes me right back to cell A1. Now each of these is a cell, and Microsoft by default gives them a name. I don't know if you ever remember playing Battleship, but when you click in a cell, this is column B and row 4. So in the upper left hand corner, the name box, it says B4 is what you're currently in. Also, it's nice because it highlights them in orange. So anywhere I click, I can look up here and find the cell that I'm currently in, or just simply look under the column and to the row here. Additionally, if you hold down the mouse and click and drag, what it will do is when you're clicking and dragging in the name box, you'll see that it's going from 4R 3C, or basically it's a 4 row by 3 column. When I click and drag, I could go to 6 rows by 4 columns, and again that's in the name box. And when I let go, I guess you could call it highlighted, but it really isn't because everything else is highlighted, but this is still selected. It says it's F9. And we'll cover this just a bit later, but basically by hitting the Enter key on the keyboard, it goes from cell to cell, which means that's the current focus of the selection that you have now. So the current focus is F12. I'll click off in a blank area to get rid of that. Now as far as selection goes, you can click and drag to select a range of cells. You can also click once in one cell, hold down the Shift key, and I'll click way over here. And when I hold down the Shift key and click, it automatically selects the group or the range of cells from this point to wherever I Shift clicked. Click off in a blank area. I can also hold down the Control key and then click all over the place, and I can select individual cells, or while still holding down the Control key, I can click and drag and select ranges. What I'm trying to show you is that you can select multiple cells and multiple ranges using the Control key. Do some data entry here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click up in cell A2 and type in the word months. Then I want to hit the Tab key, and I'll explain this in just a second. I mean, you could use your arrow key, or you could use the mouse to click over into the next cell to type in sales, but I'm still going to use the Tab key. When I'm finished, I want to go back underneath the months, but because I hit the Tab key, when I hit Enter on the keyboard, it automatically takes me right back to months. What happens is if I'm typing like some text here, and I don't use the Tab key, but I click here, then I type some text, and then I click here and I type some text, then I hit Tab, type text, hit Tab, type the text, and then I hit Enter, it takes me back just to where I started hitting the Tab key originally. So Excel likes logical things, and it can tell that you got a system going here anytime you hit the tab key from this cell to that cell to that cell. So when you hit enter, it goes right underneath where you began or started hitting the tab key. So you don't have to use your mouse to go all the way back to the beginning here if you were using the tab key all along. Now you'll notice when I'm clicking and dragging, selecting white cross, well, you want to be careful because the white cross is used only for selection, and we'll cover a little bit more later on, but to give you an idea, is if I click in a cell here and I move over the border, I get a four-way arrow. That's for actually moving the cell. So if I click in here and get a four-way arrow and I click and drag, I can move the contents within that cell. Also, you have a little black cross in the lower right-hand corner. So it really depends. You get three icons when you hover over the cell depending on where you hover. If it's in the middle, that's good to go. You're safe. You can click and drag to select or highlight. If you go over the border and you get that little four-way arrow that you see under here, then you're actually clicking and dragging to move the contents of the cell. And then if you get the black cross, that's the autofill handle, and we'll cover that. But for right now, the only focus we want to go over is how to select or highlight cells. And so when it comes to selecting cells, don't get lazy like I do sometimes, where I go ahead and think I'm selecting a cell really quick and I'm clicking and dragging and moving it. Wait for that white cross, make sure you're right smack in the middle of the cell, then click and drag, hold down your mouse, and it'll highlight the range or ranges of cells. So I'll click and drag using the white cross here, then hit the delete key on the keyboard and continue my data entry underneath the months, which now I'm in cell A3 as you can see here. And then after I type in January, hit enter so I can go to the next cell below that, because this is my months column, so all my months are going to be in here. Now, if I made a mistake, for example, let's say I wanted February abbreviated, my cursor's still flashing in the cell, so I can hit the backspace key a couple of times. And there I go, I have Feb now, and I can hit enter. Now, if I want to go back and make changes, for example, like in January, there's a couple things you can do. You can either click on it and just simply start typing, Jan, and then hit enter. Or, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo this, and you can do it one of two ways. You can hold down the control key on the keyboard and the letter Z, or up on the toolbar you can click on the undo arrow and it'll go back to January. Now like I said, there's one way is to simply click on it and type over it. Two other ways you can do it is, this is called the formula bar. You can click in there and then hit your backspace and then hit enter. In other words, why would they have a formula bar up here when you can easily, let me hit escape, click down here and type over it? Because as you'll find out later on in advanced Excel, there will be times where you'll have some output data here, but you don't know what the formula is or what the text is. And it's easier to go up here and look in here and also to make changes. Additionally, besides going up here and clicking in it and making your changes, you can also, if you're really good with the mouse, double click really fast and it plops the cursor right in there, so you can type in or delete and then go ahead and hit enter. And I'll hit enter again so I can go down below February. Finally, if you do start typing, and I made the mistake, I was supposed to type in March, not April. Since you're right in the middle of typing, all you have to do is hit escape on the keyboard and it goes back to blank. Nothing in that cell. In fact, in Excel, keep this in mind always. If you ever get screwed up and things are happening, weird things, and you're clicking and you just can't get out, and it's always hit escape. When in doubt, look for that ESC key in the upper left hand corner of your keyboard and hit it. That will save you many headaches. So, I hit escape, it goes blank. I'm going to type in M. The moment I type it in, notice how it starts filling in the word months for me. Again, Excel loves logic. It thinks because you already have it in here that you're going to be typing in the same thing. Now, all I have to do, since I hit the letter M on the keyboard, if I want to accept this, the rest of the ONTHS, just hit enter and automatically it's there. Or I'll click back into it, and I'm trying to type in March. I don't want months, but I'll type in M-A. Now, since it can't find any other word in this column that begins with MA, it won't spell it out for me like March. And actually it helps with the databases, because if you have tons of data in this column and you start typing in thinking, well, I guess in this column I do have March somewhere, I'm not sure. If you start typing in MAR and it fills in CH for you, you know somewhere in the spreadsheet, or at least in this column, you've got the word March. So that could tell you, look, I already have it in here, I don't want to type it in again. And then you can do a search or a find to find March, which we'll cover a little bit later. So I'm going to finish this off, March. Then I'm going to hit enter again, and I want down here, a totals row so I can get the totals, well, when I'm finished for sales, expenses, and profits. So I'm going to click to the right of January and type in the total sales and, make it up as I go. 120, hit the tab key. Maybe the expenses were 100. So my profits, and I'll fill that in just a second here, but let's hit enter and it'll take me right back under sales because I was using the tab key the whole time. And congratulations, you just learned how to enter data very basically into a spreadsheet. Now before I go any further, be sure to save your work. And up title bar, you can see Book 1 is a generic name, so I haven't saved it yet. And you basically want to become a save fanatic so you don't lose a lot of your work. Now when I save it, and I click on the Save button here, I can go under the File menu down to Save. It's going to perform what I call a Save As. In other words, you can see Save As right there. It's going to ask me two questions. Where do I want to save it in? Is it on the desktop, somewhere on my computer? And then what's the name I want to give it? I'm going to click Cancel here because I clicked Save As. I'm going to click Save, and what I said again, it's going to perform a Save As because the first time you save anything, Microsoft doesn't want to name your documents for you, Book 1, Book 2. Basically, it wants to give you that chance to name it. So what I want to do is I want to save it in my exercises here, and then down below, you can always, when in doubt, click on this desktop button. It takes you right to the desktop, and then save it if you're not used to using Windows or Excel. But on my desktop, I do have an exercise folder. I'll double click in it. Down below, I'll select the file name and type in sales, and then go ahead and click Save. Now once it knows its name and it knows where to save it because you performed a save for the first time, which was a Save As, all you have to do is come in here and change your numbers and hit enter by typing over it. And then when you click Save again, it's not going to ask you where to save it or what the name to give it because you already did it. Now Microsoft Word, the video trainer, goes into saving and saving as in depth. So for example, if I wanted to save a copy of this and give it a new name besides sales, I can do a Save As. There's my sales in the exercise folder, and I can call this Sales 2 and click Save. And then I'll close out. I'll minimize Excel. I'll open up the exercise folder. You can see there's Sales 2 and Sales. All I have to do is double click on it to pull it back up here. Close out of your spreadsheets. You can do it a couple of ways. If you click on this big red button here, it closes the whole Excel program. If you still want the program to be up so you can work on other workbooks, and in those workbooks you'll have these spreadsheets, then don't click on the big red box, but click on either the inner X or go under the File menu and down to Close and Close Out. And then you can use this Open button here, or go File to Open. Go through your computer, find your spreadsheet or your workbook here, and then double click on it to open it back up. Also, you can cut whole columns and paste them before or after other columns, copy whole columns. In fact, what we want to do is let's cut the H column. To select the whole column, go ahead and click on the column header, the letter H, and when you left click on it, selects the whole column. Now to cut it, when in doubt, I usually right click and then I left click on cut, gets the marching ants, and let's say I want to paste this over in column P. Well, I can scroll over down on the horizontal scroller here and go over to column P, and then I can right click on the column header, the letter P, and left click on paste, and boom, it puts it right there. Of course, I can undo that to put it right back, and then the marching ants are appearing. Hit escape key on the keyboard, hold down the control key and hit home, and it takes me right back. So you can see by left clicking on these row headers, and it's the number for each row, it heads off the row. When you click on it, it selects the whole row. Also, when you click down, it selects the whole column. You can click somewhere in the database and hold down the control key and hit the letter A, and it will select all the data that's adjacent to the cell that you were in. Click up here, control A. That's what's adjacent. Click in a blank cell, control A. There's nothing adjacent to it, so it reaches out on the spider web and it selects the whole spreadsheet. In fact, this little cell or this header up here is blank. It's between 1 and A. When you click on it, it does the same thing. It selects the whole spreadsheet.